All right, hello everyone. It is nice to see you again. As you can hopefully tell, I got my hair trimmed. I did that legally, just so you all know. We're allowed to do that here in certain counties in Oregon. So I thought I'd rock my new look for you guys, and you'll see that there's a poll question about my new look, which you can also comment on the sunburn, because the sun hates me, and I have to deal with that. It's a struggle. As usual, this is well, not as usual. This is June, but this is June, and this is our Q&R. It's a question and response, and I am going to start with some of the questions that queued up from last time. So this time, again, if you ask questions and I don't get to them, which I'm an epic fantasy writer, so often I end up speaking for a long time about a few questions. If I don't get to them, you can just leave them in the comments. Some of you are watching from Facebook, and those are the Facebook comments are being monitored, and my assistant will be queuing those up over here. I think we also have Twitch possibly working this time, and we're just doing our best with the technology, but we're not professional broadcasters, me most of all. So doing the best I can. I hope you can be very patient with me. But then you guys read epic fantasy. You are used to being very patient. So thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to start with this question from Stephanie Cloutier. What inspired you to write the Night Angel books? This is a good one. I put a lot of time into thinking about this one, which is the nice thing about having questions queued up. And the answer is very artistic. So I hope you don't think I'm being pretentious about this. But what inspired me to write the Night Angel books is really poverty. I'm kidding, mostly. When I was writing the Night Angel books, I think what I often do is like some writers start with a character, some writers start with like some awesome action scenes, and those certainly occur to me early in the process. But the heart of what I do, I think I attack I attack a problem or something that really bothers me. And in the case of Night Angel, so this isn't a simple process for me, because there's a lot of things that go into inspiration for me. In the case of Night Angel, I wanted to tell a kick-ass, fast-moving story with lots of action and cool, powerful characters and big emotions and stakes that matters and big surprises, and a silent cell phone, which I realized here before it's actually gone off that I don't have. And I wanted to do all those things at the same time that I attack the heart of some problems that really irk me. At the time, my wife was she was working in counseling, and she was working with sexually reactive young kids. So these are kids who are maybe, some of the kids are as young as 3, which is absolutely heartbreaking. But you have kids who are 5, 6, 7 years old, and these kids are acting out, usually because of horrific abuse that they've suffered. And so when you've got a 7-year-old who's abusing a 4-year-old, that abuse leaves lasting scars on the 4-year-old. And so you have a, not to put too fine a point on it, you have a 7-year-old doing evil and participating in hurting somebody else in ways that are permanent. And at what point do you say, I'm going to hold you accountable, like for the evil that you do? So I think the Catholic Church has like this age of accountability or something, and it's 8 or 9. The Catholics in the room might be able to help me with that. But like they say, before a certain point, you don't really know what you're doing, so you can't be held accountable for that. It's like, well, what do you do with all the stuff they do before that? What do you do with the evil that people participate in without meaning to? And so that was part of it. It was like that was one thing that bothered me that I wanted to look at. And not just kids, obviously, but that's where we started. And then we tend to, especially in history, we tend to judge leaders by or people who run governments by very different standards. You know, we would say, well, killing is always wrong. Well, except war, and then war is sometimes okay. It's like, well, kings can declare war. So when is that okay? And what if you're only almost a king, or if you do this thing, then you're a king? Then do we apply different moral standards to you? So I had a set of these different problems that bothered me, and so I wanted to jump into those, and at the same time, I wanted to write this fast-moving, fun story that didn't get bogged down in these things, and I wanted to write a story that was within my reach. You know, I wanted to do as much as I could. I wanted to make it as hard as I could make it, but I wanted to not, not try to write War and Peace when I'm a first-time author sitting here at age 25, just trying to tell a story. And just trying to tell a great story is hard enough. It is really hard to just manage the skills, to master the skills, to engage all the skills, to make things work. So I was trying to keep my sights appropriately high, but also appropriately low. So mixed in with that, I had a thing that I've been thinking about, and it became perhaps a little moot almost as soon as the books were published, because I had this thought of like characters like James Bond. And obviously this is before Casino Royale came out, which explored some of the same territory. But I had this thought of like, we really like these guys like James Bond who just get to do whatever they want, and they're killing people left and right. We think that's pretty cool, and it's not pretty cool in real life, but it is cool in fiction, right? And there's a gap there. Is that hypocrisy on our side? And at the least, I always thought that it would be really interesting to look at what being James Bond would do realistically, psychologically, to the character. Like what price does that guy pay to do that job? And so it was okay. So we have these assassin characters, and they do this for a living, and so I wanted to push that to the next place, and I said, is there a way that a character who kills people for a living could be a reasonably moral human being? And the only way that I could make that happen in a way that I thought had any kind of psychological reality to it or heft was I have to put this kid in the worst possible place, in the worst possible environment, and then backed into a complete corner so that he does do this job, even though it has these horrible effects on him personally and on everybody he loves. So then that gave me an excellent tension that certainly kept the character going for numerous books of like, how do you live this way? What does that mean for people? How do you do that? So those are some of the basic inspirations. And poverty, I did want to be able to sell a book. So, okay. Alex Devon. So I went long on that one. So I'm just going to answer one more from the queue, and then I will try to get to some of the live questions and do that in not too clunky a manner. Alex Devon on Facebook said, "Hi Brent Links. When you're an active reader but are trying to write your first book, how do you avoid falling into the pitfall of hijacking the concept of other people's ideas? I have a tendency to pull in concepts of other people's stuff while creating my own ideas, and I don't like it. How do you recommend avoiding that?" Well, Alex, first I want to say excellent job. Part of what you're doing already is really valuable, and that is you're understanding your own instrument. So you're understanding something about yourself as you write, that you're very sensitive And that's going to be really helpful to you. Knowing like, dang, I tend to just absorb things. I sponge things up and then I spit things out. And sometimes if I run into a big thinker or a really great writer, my stuff after I read their stuff looks a lot like theirs and not a lot like me. So I too have a huge sensitivity to other writers that I'm reading. So I would find if I'm reading Terry Pratchett during a first draft of a book, within a few days, I will be writing humor that has this very dry, British kind of wit with it, or I hope so. But I'll see it not just in plot points, which frequently don't matter, but in style. You'll see things, and you'll be affected more by the better the writer is. So you'll be like, oh my gosh, this thing hit me, and now everything I write looks like theirs. You'll also be affected more the younger you are. It's no surprise that a lot of young people will write something and it'll look a lot like Tolkien, or it'll look a lot like J.K. Rowling, or it'll look a lot like whoever is big in their life at the time, because that's the stuff that worked for them, and so it settles in really deeply. So I guess I would say to you, one, being aware of that will help you a lot. Secondly, do what you have to do, and that might mean you don't read a lot of fiction during your first drafts. And certainly once you get into the second, third, fourth drafts, fifth drafts, seventh drafts, you can do a lot more then, because the bones of what's there is more you. And you might find yourself doing what a lot of fantasy writers do, I think, which is either reading outside the genre or reading things like history. I still read tons and tons of history. I'll listen to lots of college lectures on all sorts of things that I think are exciting, and I won't read a ton of other fantasy fiction. There's a quote from Haruki Murakami, who said, let's see, did I write this down somewhere? He said, if you only read the books that everyone else is reading, you can only think what everyone else is thinking, which I think overstates it a little bit. But if all you read is all the same stuff that everybody else is reading, then you are going to feel yourself narrowed. And so I would encourage you to find those quirky things that are exciting to you. Maybe that's Byzantine history. Maybe it's Ottoman conquests. Anything that's wonderful to you, and you will find human truths in that, and you will find things that just make you go, what? They did that? How did they survive with a kingdom that looked like that for 200 years? I mean, obviously it was stable, but what? So I would head into those kind of things for a first draft. Okay. Somebody asked me a question on Facebook. Let's see if I can find who it was. I dropped it. Oh yes, from May. Colton Smith on Facebook said, given the heavy Magic the Gathering influence in the Lightbringer series, what's your favorite Magic card? And I know I wasn't gonna do any more from old questions, but I actually dug around in my stuff to find these. So here's my here's the old fave. Oh yeah, okay. There's a ton of glare on that. The Vampire Nighthawk. So I played Magic for a while. Really enjoyed it. And then here's the other one. This one might remind you of Andros Guile. The captivating vampire. Excellent stuff. I won't talk about that a ton. I'll save that for some other time. But I'll say briefly, like, I didn't actually, Magic the Gathering wasn't an influence at all until the second book. When I think I'd already come up with, I never played the game. I didn't know anything about it. I had a friend come up to me, a math professor at the university level. And he's like, sort of like, so have you ever heard of this game, Magic the Gathering? Because, it sounds like it's pretty similar to a thing that you do in your world. And then he talked to me more about it. And it turns out, he's being very, very sly about how he introduced us. But this is a guy who would win tournaments and stuff. And he was a very, very good player. And he just sort of introduced me to the intricacies of the game and made me really understand kind of the mathematical beauty of it and how it all fit together. And I thought that was wonderful. I originally had wanted a game just to get Kip and Andros in the same room. And so I needed some kind of game. And I was like, okay, you can do chess, but that's boring. How about a card game? And then I just started layering these things on top of it. How about a card game, but the characters in the card game are real historical characters, and then I can use that to sort of shoehorn in exposition. I can be teaching you about the history of the world while not seeming to be teaching you the history of the world. This is what epic fantasy authors have to do all over the place, is figure out ways to shoehorn in exposition, and hopefully it shouldn't be shoehorning it in. It should be far more subtle than that, but I have to constantly be teaching you about how the world works and the history of the world to make the world feel real. And you have to do that in ways that aren't big and clunky, like, oh, here's 5 pages of exposition. Now we can actually have 5 pages of the story, and then we're going to have to stop and have another 5 pages of exposition. That doesn't work. That might have worked a long time ago, but I don't think it works anymore. So anyway, so it was that, and then I was like, wait, what if those cards tell you the truth? And what if you can only access parts of the card depending on what you can draft? And what if not all the cards work? Because then too many people would know too much of the truth, but only the original cards work. And so I just layered these systems on top of it, and it really worked out to be a fun thing for me, and a thing that kept me coming back for more, and not just an excuse to have 2 characters in a room. Although it was really lovely for that. Yes, and I see there are some old Vampire Nighthawk fans in the comments. That deck was really bad. It never worked out. I could never get it to win for me, which is probably more a comment on my abilities than anything. But I sure did like it. It was really fun to get some vampires out there and then just beat up on people. Okay, let me early bird question here from today, Brett C. Do you find yourself writing certain characters or events into corners often? What kind of strategies do you use to remedy unintended narrative roadblocks? Brett, I do. I often do that. Actually, that used to terrify me, and it doesn't anymore. I love putting my characters into impossible situations, and like when you do that, one, you have the opportunity to really delight your readers. And your readers have probably read, I always just come along assuming that you guys have read all this stuff I've read. And if I've seen it done before, you've seen it done before. And so I bring this tremendous amount of respect to the readers and go, you know what? If I get to a place here as an author, and I don't know how the hell am I going to get the character out of this? Then maybe my reader will be saying that too. So coming to that place, what you have to do then is you have to sit with your terror, because you'll come up with the first idea you'll come up with will solve your problem, and it'll be lame. It'll be something you've seen before. You're like, well, I know, and then you'll start pulling out things, and it'll look like it'll look like a later season of Lost. Shouldn't have done that. Let's just scrub that one. There's still going to be some bitter Lost fans out there. And what you want to do is you want to push past that and say, is there another way? Is there another way? Is there a better way? Is there something I can do? And then you can worry about it. And if you worry about it enough and you think, like, well, like what tools do I already have in the world? What characters already have ways that they can help me solve this? What else is going on in my world? What are the bad guys doing? You can then, when you get stuck, when you write your character into a corner, you can come up with something delightful. That is your chance to write something wonderful, and it will probably take you some days of pain. I had this time when I was writing this book. Actually, I was writing this book, and I had this thought. But these 2 characters, they have no reason. No, sorry, it wasn't that book. It was the first book. It was Way of Shadows. And I hadn't published the book yet. Obviously, I was in rewrites, and I thought these 2 characters have no reason to even be friends. Like, why do these 2 characters even hang out with each other? Why are they around each other? And I was just like, there's no reason that makes sense, like psychologically, for these characters to be together. And the characters were Durzo and Mama K. Man, now I have to think if I can have spoilers for Night Angel. I mean, gosh, I wrote that book a long time ago. I'm gonna have the spoiler because otherwise I'm just keeping things hidden for no reason. So I sort of like stomped around my house for 2 full days, going like, God, there's just, these people are both so thorny and so powerful. Like, there's no reason they would take this kind of crap from each other. And then like a bolt out of the blue hit me. So this wasn't a plot, a dead end or a plot corner that I painted myself into, but it was like psychological reality, like a relational reality between these 2 characters. Like, it doesn't make sense that they have this relationship. And then it came to me that I was like, oh, they're in love with each other. Oh, and they've been hiding that from each other and so I thought, oh my gosh, I got to go back and I got to rewrite a bunch of stuff to make this work. This is a mess. And I went back and I had to change 2 lines. I think it was 2 lines in the entire novel to seed that in. It was like, it was already there, oddly enough. So sometimes those dead ends are really beautiful places for you to get better and for you to give a wonderful gift to your readers. So lean into that, even though it's really, really hard. Okay, I will, man, I think, let me look at the poll. Nice. So you guys had a, no, sorry. Don't mind me. I'm actually going to just jump back to the questions. We'll address the poll at the very end. Okay, I'm going to skip that question. Thanks. Also, that question is a good one, but it's going to take me a little too long. From Shaka, early bird. 10th anniversary of the Michael Spafford asked, with the 10th anniversary of the Black Prism coming up in August, are there any special plans to celebrate a decade with the Guiles? I do not know of any yet, Michael. I know there are some conversations in the pipeline, and I don't know more. So I would love there to be special things. We'll just have to see what my wonderful publishers roll out for me. Early bird, if you had it your way, what kind of feedback from these Q&As would help you the most? I guess what would help me the most is letting me know what parts of these are most useful to you guys. I mean, I'm kind of here not to try to turn myself into a celebrity because, but like if I can be helpful to you, like I was sitting here going like why do I do this? Why do I show up? Why do people show up to listen to me talk? And I was like, maybe I can say some things that are helpful, whether that's to writers or whether that's just the fans who love SFF. So hey Brent, I really love it when you do X, Y, or Z. Man, I love the long answers where you're just going on and on about whatever and sort of get to feel, what your thoughts are on all sorts of things, or like, hey, can you really focus on the right things? I guess that kind of feedback, because I feel like an odd, celebrity wannabe or something sometimes, and I don't really want to be a celebrity, but I would love to be helpful to you, and I like hanging out with you guys. You've been really friendly. You've been very gentle on me, but I want to be a help. Yeah, and I have learned a few things along the way, so I think I can do that. Here we go. Brett C. I've thoroughly enjoyed following Kip's adventures, watching him grow as an insecure boy into a man. I relate a lot with Kip's imposter syndrome, as it were, and seeing his emotional growth through such mental and emotional turmoil gives me a lot of hope for myself. Well, thank you. I I hope Kip does that for all of us. I was just talking about myself as a little bit of an imposter celebrity here. So maybe Kip gets it legitimately, comes by it legitimately. Yeah, I really wanted to hold on to the core of who Kip was and not turn him into somebody who he's not by the last book. It's really important for me to show the growth of characters, to have them grow in new ways, but to have them grow realistically. And sometimes that can be really frustrating because we like it in our fiction when a person comes along and they've got a really relatable problem. Yeah, I get that. I do that too. And then something happens and then magically they're wonderful and their life is wonderful and everything's better. And you're like, man, I wish my life could be like that too. And I just need that one thing. And I hate that. Because none of us do just need one thing. It's like we can come over a new mountain, and we don't just get to stay at the mountaintop. It's like, oh, actually, there are other mountains beyond this, and there are ways for me to learn. And then you're going to backslide as you move along. Even if you've learned something new about yourself, even if you've come into new reserves of strength and you've grown, somebody's going to hit you with that old insult and it's going to take you right back to when you were 13 years old. And I wanted to reflect that in Kip's growth, and actually in every character's growth in these books. I want to do that, and I feel like that's something that I bring to the genre, that I bring to my books. I like to show the characters as more real people, and epic fantasy certainly gives me a length, a breadth of canvas to show that. Characters get to change a lot when you're with them over years and over many thousands of pages. You can do that, or you can just fill it with lots of fights and fun stuff like that, which is fine too. But I like to show how characters change and become more themselves, or change and become very different from who they were because they react against that. So that's something I love to do. Okay. And let's take one last question. Actually, instead of the last question, since I've had you guys for about a half an hour now, I will just talk briefly about the poll. Okay. Brent and character one. So like I said at the beginning, I finally got my haircut, and got that legitimately done, which was so wonderful. I still have on the sides this really, really thick hair. All my life, I've had this incredibly thick hair. And when it grows long, my head just gets bigger, and it's already got its own gravity. To quote a movie some of you might remember, without doing the accent. So I was happy to get that done. I'm going with the short beard for a little while. And people say, so the poll question is Brent and character one, the beard. The vote right now, it looks like with not very many votes. Are you even an epic fantasy dude without a wizard beard? So some of you apparently telling me I should go back to the long beard, which I cut because my daughter, who was 3 at the time, told me to. 2 votes for the goat is the goat. And 3 votes for totally shaven. I want to see babyface Brent, followed by totally shaven eyebrows 2. And that's just cruel. Man, my poor eyebrows. That would be. I guess that would be a signature look. That would be kind of fun. They'd be like, oh, that guy. Yeah, there's something weird about him. I don't know what it is. And then people would be like, it's the eyebrows. Yes, and the current look is growing on me. Follows up the end. So anyway, everyone, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me. Hope this can be helpful. Next time, I might even have my new webcam, which was on order for 10 weeks. So I might be in even sharper definition, which is scary for all of us. But apparently that's the thing these days. Thanks for coming by, and I hope you have a great month. Stay healthy, and we'll talk soon. Bye.